One of the most misunderstood aspects of infant development is that growth depends not just on how much your baby eats, but on how, when, and under what conditions feeding happens. Some feeding mistakes don't immediately show up on growth charts, but they quietly influence metabolism, nutrient absorption, and hunger signals in ways that carry lasting consequences. And the reason this matters so deeply is that these early feeding patterns are literally programming your child's metabolic blueprint for life. Most parents are laser-focused on ounces consumed and percentile rankings, but they miss what's happening beneath the surface. The neurological calibration of appetite, the development of gut-brain communication pathways, and the emotional associations with food that your child will carry well into adulthood. The truth is, your baby's relationship with hunger, fullness, and eating is being shaped right now, in these first months and years. And most of the mistakes parents make have nothing to do with nutrition itself. They come down to misreading cues, rushing natural processes, and unintentionally teaching the body to ignore its own signals. In this video, we're going to talk about 7 common feeding mistakes that affect your baby's growth, but that most parents completely overlook. Mistake number 1. Feeding in response to every single cry. When your baby cries, and your first instinct is to offer the breast or a bottle, you're doing what feels natural. You're responding to distress with comfort. But here's what most parents don't realize. Not every cry is a hunger cry. And when feeding becomes your automatic response to any form of discomfort, you're accidentally teaching your baby's nervous system that food is the solution to every kind of stress. This matters enormously because babies are born with a remarkable ability to distinguish between hunger, tiredness, overstimulation, and physical discomfort. But that ability gets blurred when every signal receives the same response. Over time, the baby stops recognizing what true hunger actually feels like in their body, and instead learns that food equals emotional relief. This isn't about withholding comfort, it's about helping your baby's brain develop accurate hunger signals that will serve them throughout their entire life. Think about learning a new language, where every time you try to express that you're tired, cold, or scared, the teacher responds by asking if you're hungry and offering you food. Eventually, you'd stop trying to distinguish between those feelings because the response is always the same. That's exactly what happens in a developing baby's brain when feeding is used for any and all distress. The baby is trying to communicate different needs for connection, for sleep, for comfort, for a diaper change. But when the answer is always milk, they gradually lose the ability to read their own internal signals. From this point forward, I want you to take a 10-second pause before offering food when your baby cries. Ask yourself when they last ate. Are they showing real hunger signs, the rooting reflex, sucking on their fists, feeding-related sounds? Or could this be tiredness, overstimulation, or simply a need to be held? Try something else first. Rock them, reposition them, check the diaper, offer a pacifier for soothing rather than feeding. If it's genuine hunger, you'll know within a few minutes. But if the crying stops with contact or a fresh diaper, you've just helped your baby's brain learn that different feelings have different solutions. Mistake number 2. Pushing them to eat just one more bite. Even in infancy, long before children can speak or fully process language, they are incredibly sensitive to pressure around food. When you encourage one more sip, one more spoonful, or keep trying to latch a baby who has clearly pulled away, you are sending a message that overrides their internal fullness signals. The message lands as, what your body is telling you matters less than what I'm trying to accomplish. Most parents do this with the best intentions. They worry about growth, about whether the baby is eating enough, about hitting the right numbers. But here's the hard truth. Pressure around food, even at 6 months old, teaches babies to stop trusting their own hunger and fullness cues. And once that trust is eroded, it becomes incredibly difficult to rebuild. Children who are consistently pushed to eat beyond what feels right often grow into toddlers who either refuse food altogether or eat mechanically, completely disconnected from any sense of whether they're actually hungry. To put it plainly, imagine being at a dinner where the host keeps adding food to your plate the moment you pause, saying, "Come on, just one more bite, you've barely eaten anything," even when you were genuinely enjoying the meal. That pressure would make you either stop eating entirely or disconnect from your fullness in order to please them. That's the exact dynamic you create when you override your baby's satiation signals. They start eating to satisfy you rather than to satisfy hunger, and that is the beginning of disordered eating patterns that can persist throughout life. Growth charts measure weight and height, but they don't measure whether your baby is learning to listen to their body. And that is actually more important for long-term health than landing in a specific percentile. Here's where to start. The moment your baby turns away, pushes the bottle back, clamps their mouth shut, or stops actively sucking, respect that signal immediately. Don't try again. Don't say, "just a little more." Don't distract them to sneak in extra milliliters or spoonfuls. End the feeding with calm confidence, trusting that their body knows what it needs better than any chart or guideline ever could. If you're concerned about growth, track it across weeks and months, not meal to meal. Babies have natural appetite fluctuations tied to growth spurts, developmental phases, and simply how they feel on a given day. Mistake number 3, feeding while distracted. When you feed your baby while scrolling your phone, watching television, or mentally running through your to-do list, it can feel like efficient multitasking. The baby is getting fed either way, right? But here's what most parents don't realize. Babies read your presence during feeding far more than we ever acknowledge. They're not just consuming milk or food, they are absorbing emotional cues, learning whether the world feels safe and calm, and building neurological connections that link eating with relaxation and digestion. When you're distracted, your baby's nervous system picks up on that disconnection, and it actually weakens their digestive signals and reduces nutrient absorption. Feeding is not a mechanical process of delivering calories. It is a relational experience that teaches your baby's body whether eating is a calm, safe, connected experience or a stressful and disconnected one. Think of it like trying to have a meaningful conversation with someone who keeps checking their phone. Even if they're nodding and responding, you feel their absence, and it changes the quality of the interaction. Your baby experiences the same thing during feeding. When you're elsewhere mentally, they feel it in the tension of your body, in the lack of eye contact, in the absence of responsiveness to their pauses and cues. This creates a low-level stress response in their nervous system that pulls them out of the parasympathetic state of rest and digestion and into a more activated state where digestion is actually compromised. Babies who are regularly fed in conditions of divided attention tend to experience more digestive discomfort, more fussiness after meals, and less clear hunger signals, because their body has learned that eating happens under stress rather than calm. Put the phone in another room during feedings. Turn off the television. Minimize background noise when you can. Make eye contact. Notice your baby's signals, when they pause, when they look up at you, when they seem satisfied or still hungry. You don't need to be perfectly focused every single second, but your presence should be primarily with them rather than split between them and a screen. Mistake number 4, using the bottle as a pacifier. When your baby fusses and you automatically reach for a bottle to calm them down, even if it's only been 30 minutes since the last feeding, you are using feeding as a universal soothing tool rather than a response to actual hunger. This pattern of constant sucking without real hunger creates confusion in 3 key areas: oral motor development, appetite regulation, and the ability to distinguish hunger from other needs. Babies are born with a powerful sucking reflex because it is critical for survival. But that reflex is not designed exclusively for feeding. It also serves comfort, exploration, and self-soothing. When the bottle becomes the default response to any discomfort, the baby's brain stops differentiating between "I need food" and "I need comfort," which makes it nearly impossible to develop clear hunger signals as they grow. And here's something many parents don't realize. Constant non-nutritive sucking from a bottle can also affect the development of the oral cavity, potentially contributing to dental issues and speech delays down the road. Think of it this way. If every time you felt anxious, bored, or uncomfortable, someone handed you a snack, you would eventually lose the ability to tell the difference between genuine hunger and emotional discomfort. And you would almost certainly develop an unhealthy relationship with food as a coping mechanism. That's exactly the pattern you're establishing when bottles become pacifiers. Your baby's body is designed to have natural rhythms of hunger and fullness. Periods of genuine hunger followed by satisfaction and digestion. But when they're constantly sucking on a bottle, those rhythms get disrupted. They're never truly hungry and never truly full. They exist in this constant, low-level state of intake that scrambles their appetite signals entirely. Start distinguishing between hunger sucking and comfort sucking. If your baby ate an hour ago and seems fussy, try other soothing approaches first. Hold them, rock them, offer an actual pacifier designed for non-nutritive sucking. Change the environment, or check whether they're tired or uncomfortable. Use bottles specifically for hunger, not for every moment of fussiness. Mistake number 5. Starting solid foods before your baby is physically ready. When you begin introducing solids based purely on age, my baby just turned 6 months, so it must be time, you may be moving faster than your baby's body is actually prepared for. The truth is, readiness for solid food is not simply about reaching a certain number of months. It is about physical development, about your baby hitting specific milestones that allow them to process food safely and effectively. Those milestones include the ability to sit upright with minimal support, solid head and neck control, clear interest in food, and the oral motor coordination needed to move food from the front of the mouth to the back for swallowing. When you introduce solids before those abilities are in place, you're not just creating a choking risk. You're also taxing the digestive system in a way that reduces the body's capacity to absorb nutrients from those foods. Early introduction before a baby is ready to sit upright can lead to poor nutrient absorption, increased digestive discomfort, and even food aversion later on, because the body simply wasn't equipped to handle it. A good way to picture this is trying to teach someone to run before they can walk. You might physically move their legs in a running motion, but their body doesn't have the coordination, balance, or muscular development to do it safely or efficiently. The same thing happens when you offer solid food to a baby who can't sit independently or doesn't have enough core stability to hold themselves upright during a meal. Posture and gravity play enormous roles in safe swallowing and effective digestion. When a baby is reclined or lacks body control, food doesn't move through their system efficiently, which means more reflux, more discomfort, and lower nutrient uptake. Before starting solids, make sure your baby can sit upright in a high chair with minimal support, holds their head steadily without wobbling, and is showing active interest in food, reaching for it, watching you eat with intense curiosity, opening their mouth when food comes near. If those signs aren't there yet, waiting a few more weeks costs nothing, but rushing can. Mistake number 6. Using food to manage behaviour. When your baby is fussing in a shopping cart and you hand them a pouch to quiet things down, or when you praise good behaviour with a treat, it seems harmless in the moment. But the long-term impact is significant. You are teaching your child that food regulates emotions and that eating is tied to behaviour management rather than hunger. This pattern of using food as a reward, a distraction, or a behavioural tool lays the groundwork for emotional overeating that can persist well into adulthood. Your baby's brain is forming a powerful association. When I'm uncomfortable, bored, upset, or want approval, food will fix it. This doesn't just affect how they relate to eating. It shapes how they'll cope with stress, boredom, and difficult emotions for years and years to come. Here's the mechanism most parents miss. When food becomes emotionally charged rather than neutrally connected to hunger, it disrupts the natural appetite regulation system that would otherwise guide healthy eating patterns throughout life. Picture this. Every time you feel stressed at work, instead of addressing the actual problem, your boss gives you a cookie. At first, the cookie provides a momentary distraction, but over time you'd start associating stress with eating something sweet, and you'd lose the ability to actually process or resolve the stressful situation. Your brain would be wired to reach for food whenever something feels difficult, bypassing the development of real coping skills. That's exactly what happens when we use food to manage children's behavior. They never learn to tolerate discomfort, to self-soothe without consuming something, or to distinguish physical hunger from emotional need. When your baby is upset, bored, or struggling with something, resist the urge to immediately offer food if it isn't an actual mealtime and there are no real signs of hunger. Try connection first. Pick them up, change the scenery, offer a toy, sing, talk, or simply acknowledge that things feel hard right now. When it comes to rewards, choose options that have nothing to do with food. Praise, stickers, extra playtime, a special activity. These choices all work without creating emotional weight around eating. Mistake number 7. Comparing your baby's eating to other babies. When you're at a parent gathering and someone mentions how much their baby is eating, or when you see social media posts about babies polishing off entire jars of puree, it's natural to start measuring. Should my baby be eating more? Are they falling behind? But here's the truth that's hard to hold on to when you're worried. Growth is deeply individual. What looks like very little for one baby may be exactly right for another. The problem with comparing feeding isn't just the anxiety it creates in you as a parent. Anxiety around feeding leads to behaviours that actually undermine your baby's natural hunger regulation. When you start adjusting your approach based on what other babies are eating, you often end up pressuring your baby to eat more than their body needs, distracting them to sneak in extra bites, or becoming so hypervigilant about every gram and every spoonful that feeding becomes stressful rather than natural. And when feeding becomes stressful, babies pick up on that tension, which can lead to food refusal, increased fussiness at mealtimes, or a growing disconnection from their own hunger signals. It's like deciding that because your neighbour runs 5 miles every morning, you should too, even though your body, fitness level, schedule, and goals are completely different. What works for them has no bearing on what's right for you. The same is absolutely true for how babies eat. Some children naturally eat larger amounts, others prefer small, frequent portions. Some need more calories because they're in the middle of a growth spurt. Others are in a consolidation phase where growth temporarily slows. Some babies are highly active and burn through calories quickly. Others are calmer and simply need less. Growth charts give you a general range, but within that range there is enormous natural variation, and all of it is completely normal. The goal is not for your baby to eat like someone else's baby. The goal is for your baby to eat according to their own hunger, grow along their own curve, and develop a healthy, pressure-free relationship with food. Your job now is to stop looking sideways and start looking at your own baby's patterns. Are they growing consistently along their own curve, even if it sits higher or lower than other children? Are they hitting developmental milestones? Are they energetic, engaged, and generally content? Those are the markers that actually matter, not whether they finished as much dinner as your friend's child. Track growth across weeks and months rather than meal to meal or day to day. Trust that if your pediatrician isn't raising concerns, your baby's intake is meeting the needs of their body. And when the urge to compare shows up, remind yourself that consistency matters far more than quantity. And your baby's relationship with hunger and fullness is being shaped right now, based on whether you trust their signals or drown them out with pressure and comparison.